Okay, so just imagine we have, maybe someone from Jamaica, someone from Australia, someone from Nigeria, someone from um, Ghana, someone from Louisiana. If we put them all in one room, what language would they speak? They would speak English, right? What type of English would they speak? Would they all speak their local slang? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't speak broken English. Ideally, these are all kind of native speakers. What? So, yeah. So they wouldn't. So if you if you think about how you would speak, for instance, in a mixed group of settings, maybe with people that maybe don't know English as well as you, you'll probably adjust your English. You might not even think about it, but you'll probably adjust your English so that you're understood by the most amount of people. So you wouldn't speak, slang that you grew up, speaking. Um, you'll try to speak naturally, but you'll also try to adjust it to make it uh, clear. So when it comes to the Arabic language, as we know, there's many different dialects. From the Moroccan Darija to the Egyptian Amiya to the Lugha al-Mahkiya in the Levant, Levantine Arabic, the Iraqi Arabic, the Maldives Arabic, and so on. So there's a lot of different dialects of Arabic. But if those Arabic speakers were in one room together, how would they speak? They would actually speak something closer to Fusha. But that's not what they call it. They call it Lughatul Muthaqifin, the educated people's language. Um, and so it's somewhere between what they call modern standard Arabic and sort of a natural colloquial way of pronouncing their words and things like that. Um, so when it comes to learning Arabic, especially if you're, learning it academically, so to speak, you're learning it to read, to, to kind of read classical texts and things of that nature, you are probably going to want to know a few things about the language, which we started talking about last session. So learning, some grammar, learning something about the morphology of the Arabic language, and just how to express yourself, gaining vocabulary and things like that. Yes, sir. Okay. Raise my voice. The other, where's the, oh, this one? Okay. Bismillah, is that better? Okay. So I want to give you a few tips on studying the Arabic language. And this will just be my quick rundown based on some of my experience in teaching Arabic. Can I get this board?
Yes.
Put it in front. Can we see it on the camera? That's good. Okay. So, who's a true beginner? You don't know the Arabic alphabet at all. You don't know the sounds or anything like that. Who's a true beginner? Okay. So, if you're a true beginner, the first thing that you need to know uh, is the alphabet. And this is two things: the names of the letters and the sounds of the letters. Uh, and try to hone in as deeply as possible. So try to master the names of the letters Okay, alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, and so on, as well as the sounds. So try to, perfect your pronunciation of the sounds of the Arabic language as much as possible. Okay, master it at the very beginning. So there's a few tools that you can use to do this. There's a lot of Arabic songs on YouTube for children. So starting off that way, memorizing some of those songs, and just getting it to the point where it's second nature. Um, and then uh, another thing that I mentioned maybe a few weeks ago, right, was mastering those ozan. So what do you call it? So I guess along with the alphabet, we also have the vowel sounds and all of that. We can talk about that later. But then mastering the ozan, the scales, okay, the scales and morphology. Uh, Memorize all of this stuff. Memorize it from the very beginning. Also, verb conjugations. Um, Learn how to use a dictionary. So the most common Arabic dictionary, or one of the ones that they use scholastically, is the Hansville dictionary, and it's a dictionary of modern standard Arabic. It's based off of Taj al Arus and some of the premier Arabic language dictionaries. So learn how to use that, and that comes kind of in tandem with learning the scales uh, and knowing the alphabet, of course. Okay. So if you do these basic things before you even start to get into grammar and things like that, you have a strong arsenal. So master these things before you even step into the arena. And so and then we will get into like reading. So if you can do these things perfectly, then you can start reading. You can start reading. Um, and so what are we going to be reading? Well, what do you want to read? The Quran? Okay. Okay. So Quran, Hadith. That's it. Okay. Sirah. Stories. Okay. So it's good that you mentioned the Sirah. Actually, once upon a time, I taught a class teaching Arabic through the Sirah for false beginners. So people that already knew how to read, um, you know, we already know the story of the Sirah, right? We know it in English, right? So if you read something like that, something that you already know in English, in Arabic, it becomes easier to follow, and your only job is to try to, you know, absorb the vocabulary and absorb how they're speaking about things. Okay, and then using your dictionary, your handy dandy dictionary, to look up words that you don't know. You'll be surprised that you probably already know uh, many words already. Uh, you probably already have a very strong working vocabulary in Arabic already, just from being a Muslim. So all of that, I think, is very easy to come by. So Sira is kind of a sort of a good entry point because they're going to bring in Quranic ayat, they're going to bring in hadith, they're going to bring in other stories that you already know. So it's a good entry point into the language, I believe. Um, Anything else that we need to talk about with regards to the language? Okay, yes. Mistakes. So one thing that I have always have encountered many times with people who have taken classes is that they can't get beyond a certain point because maybe their teacher has sort of said that they made a mistake, or they can't get beyond a certain point because mentally they're like, oh, I can't go forward unless I master this one thing, and then they don't master anything. Has anyone experienced this before? I know many people have had multiple classes of Arabic. um, and I guess one of the things that caused me to stop teaching Arabic in the past was because people, usually the Arabic classes, they start and they don't really have for one thing, they don't have an ending. They don't have an end point. They just start an Arabic class and expect it to go on forever, which it very well could. But at the same time, people don't also have a plan. They get burnt out. Yes, sir.
No, I use this. Sure. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think one of the important points that he's making that I really want to harp on is the idea of having short-term goals and long-term goals. Many of us learn Arabic with no organization. So we just learning to be learning, but if you could schedule your progress and you could start defining short-term progress, in 2 months, what do you want to be able to do after 2 months? This will help to keep your drive going, because if you're just studying to no end, it's going to seem like it's a never-ending road. But I think one of the best ways to learn Arabic is to plan it. So you say, after 1 month, I want to be able to do this. After 2 months, I want to be able to do this. After 3 months or after 4 months, I want to be able to do this. Right? And then the question becomes, how can I do this? So if I want to do this in 1 month, then how can I get there? You have to treat your Arabic journey like you plan your life, right? You have to. Because, for example, we speaking about verb conjugations. If you say, okay, I want to be able to conjugate verbs. So in 2 months, I want to be able to conjugate verbs. That's my goal. Now you have a short-term goal that you could directly work towards, right? But if you're just studying, this book and that book, this book and that book, you're not studying smart, right? You have to be intelligent, and you have to plan your Arabic learning journey like you plan anything else. And I think much of the failures of learning Arabic, one is studying with no direction, no determined goal. You can say, okay, I want to be able to read the Quran and Hadith. But to be honest, that takes years and years of study. So you can say, you know what? I want to be able to understand Surah Al-Mulk at the end of 6 months. See, now we're starting to plan. And you have very defined and particular goals, and you can feel like you actually accomplished something. But this is the importance that he's saying. What do you want to do with the Arabic language? Quran and Sunnah, that's very vague. If you like to read history in English, well, read history in Arabic too. Do not limit yourself just to Quran and Hadith and learning the Arabic language, because Arabic is a language. It's a language. It's not just Quran and Hadith. So one of my advices I can give on top of this is plan very particular and thought out goals, right? Every 2 months, have a benchmark that you want to meet. This is what corporations and any kind of successful business have these practices. So take the same approach to your Arabic. This way you won't get overwhelmed. Because learning Arabic can be stressful. It's trauma. We spoke about this. This is why we have Arabic coaches. We want to start using Arabic coaches. Because sometimes you get overwhelmed and you quit. That's stress. You quit because you're stressed. You're tired of the language. You feel like you can't do it. So there's an emotional and psychological element as well that you have to look after. And the way to protect yourself from overload, from despair, from lack of confidence is by setting these short-term goals. You look at the Quran as an ocean. It's like, where I'm gonna jump in. It's big, Quran, Hadith. Let's say, you know what? I want to know I want to be able to understand the first 5 hadiths from Riyadh al-Salihin for this semester or this short-term session. And that's how we want to shape the culture of learning Arabic. It's not it's not as simple as we want to study Arabic. Let's create a culture of learning Arabic, right? Very defined, very organized, very systematic. very interest based too as well. People learn or people are passionate about what they're interested in. So a part of this lecture here today is to redefine the culture of learning Arabic, to set short-term goals, and create an environment where you may be working on something different than this student because you have different things that you want to accomplish in the Arabic language. So we want to be able to accommodate people interests because people learn what they're interested in. So I just wanted to add to Brother Maurice's points because I think that's a very important point that he brought up. And I'm speaking from experience. I've been stressed. I've been through every emotion with the Arabic language. It's like a relationship, a wife.
Yeah,
You go through every emotion with her. Same thing with the Arabic. You get stressed, you get tired, you feel happy, you feel joyous, you feel depressed. If everyone who study Arabic could attest to this. So we have to change how do we study Arabic, and we have to account for all of these things. So we really want to be kind of innovative and have Arabic coaches. You have a main teacher, but we have WhatsApp groups where we all get to practice. You have an Arabic coach, So we want to make it a communal effort as well.
I got it. Oh, all right. So, yes, sir.
How do you approach it as a teacher of Arabic? Some of us have been around the block a long time with Arabic. We've been hearing that, for instance, one approach would be when we talk about grammar. Most of us don't even know English grammar, right? So if you put somebody, so if you emphasize grammar, conjugations right away, that type of approach, it will kind of scare people. And other approaches that other teachers have said, yeah, that's why you should approach it with learn mufadat, vocabulary, okay, or how to speak, approach, the type of sexy or out of the day. I mean, different types of approaches as opposed to grammar.
Yeah.
What is your
my
view?
approach?
Your view, just tell me you got grammar.
So that's yes, sir. Okay, so he's asking about the various approaches. Maybe something like grammar. That might not interest some people. That might be a little bit difficult. Might scare some people away. Versus there's a lot of different approaches that are out there. So, and I'm kind of familiar with it. So, so the first thing I would like to say is that I'm first a student of the Arabic language, and I'm still a student of the Arabic language. So I'm not just here speaking as a teacher, someone who knows and everyone else doesn't. I'm still learning myself, and I think that's true of anyone who's reached any sort of level in Arabic. So it's not going to end anytime soon. So let's just put that in your head. Like we're all sort of beginners. So I can tell you a little bit about my personal journey with the Arabic language, and maybe that will help you sort of get some ideas about approach. You have something to, like, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So I think at this point I've been learning Arabic over half of my life. Um, I know I don't look that old, but I started learning Arabic in the year 2001, shortly after I took my Shahada. In fact, Brother Habib Rasul Miller, he was in the adjacent Arabic class. I was at UNC in Chapel Hill, and he was at Duke. So that's how we met. And I want him to give some words, maybe in a couple of minutes, inshallah. So I started off just in the regular college style Arabic class. And interesting enough, I had a really good Arabic teacher who I saw just a few weeks ago when I was down in North Carolina. And I guess she's very proud of me. And so, she had me do these simple things in the class, and just by memorization. Some of the things that we did, like first semester, of course, learning the alphabet. We learned, about the ozan and the fa'ala, 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 and so on, and the verb conjugations, and how to use, how to basically use the Arabic dictionary. All of those things kind of stuck with me throughout my journey. Um, and then I guess after that, um, we spent a few time, maybe few months where we would teach Arabic at the local masjid to children. Um, remember that? And also the first, I guess my real first taste of the Arabic language was when I traveled to Morocco. That was my last semester. That was back in 2005, and I stayed there 3.5 months. It wasn't enough to really give me like 100% fluency in the Arabic language, but it was enough to sort of get me started, gain the confidence to actually speak Arabic with native speakers. And then from there, I just kind of stuck with it. And one of the things I did, I guess, for that day that I came back from Morocco. I was in New York. I went and I bought a book, two books of Sirah, uh, children's books. Children's books. One was in Mecca, and the other one was in Medina. I was like, okay, I'm going to master these books. And so I would sit down, I would read the book until I came to something I couldn't really decipher. I would put it down. Go back, study, the language a little bit more. I used to just read the dictionary, just like Malcolm X used to do. Um, you read the Arabic dictionary, and so I would come back maybe a few weeks or a few months later, try to read the book again, and to my surprise, I could understand a little bit more, but maybe I'll get stuck at some other place, and then, you know, I would do this up until I could actually understand the whole book. Um, And so, just sticking with it, that wasn't a class. That wasn't an Arabic class that I had to, go to every day and things like that. Another thing, I had a language partner, so to speak, what they call a language partner, someone who you can ask any questions about the Arabic language. So if you have someone who knows a little bit more than you do, or someone who has fluency, or maybe someone who's an expert that's the best, then you can always ask that person questions and they can explain it to you. Um, so this is kind of a personal endeavor. It's something that I sought for myself. And so I think for adult learners, as most of us are adult learners, um, we kind of need something more like that, where you know um, we are self motivated, and we're not necessarily at the whims of a teacher to say, oh, you need to learn this or you need to learn that. You guys are far more mature than that. Um, and then, lo and behold, some years later, um, it's one of my mentors who just happens to be one of the authors of this book in Bailo. He suggested that I go to Sudan. And so he suggested that I go to Sudan and get a master's in teaching Arabic. So I did that for 3 years. Now, on one hand, I think I most definitely benefited from that experience, but on the other hand, I don't know if everyone could benefit in the same way from that experience. Um, you're dropped in a place where you know most people don't know English. They don't know the language that you speak, so you're forced to use Arabic on a daily basis. Maybe several months would pass. I haven't spoken anything except Arabic. Um, so in a way that's good, but it's also less rewarding, so to speak, while you're in it. Because when you might notice some progress, but overall you're still behind most of the people in the society. So they're still going to look at you. Oh, why don't you know this or why don't you know that? So the learning process becomes uh, instead of learning something kind of as a hobby, you're kind of forced to learn it just to live. I don't know how many of you want to be in that situation. And so I would say that at the when I came back from Sudan and I started teaching in the classroom, that's actually when I started learning Arabic. Because, maybe, I could make my way through it beforehand, but until you start teaching something, you don't know that you know it. So teaching is another progression in your learning. So if you can teach something, whatever it is, whatever your expertise may be, then that is, a very important part of your learning. You have anything to say here? Yes, sir.
I'll take this. I'm back once again. So, so one of the things I do want to emphasize, because your question of the approach, I think you don't have to. How can I say this? You don't have to. You can have a primary approach. So, for example, say here we learn the alphabets, right? We learn the names of the letters. We learn the sounds. Step one. Step two. Let's say we do verb conjugations. That's what I prefer because you can't speak Arabic without being able to conjugate verbs. You always talk about who did what. So you can't even speak if you don't know how to conjugate verbs. Literally. But let's say I am a believer in like a twofold approach. Me personally, this is my personal. I think you have to have this approach. This is like classroom. This is where you learn the technical things. But I think you should also have activities. So I'm gonna say activity. And what this activity is studying without a formal environment. So for example, let's say we have Arabic class. Let's say we learn conjugations. We can pronounce the letters because we start with the letters. Then for me personally, the second thing, you start with verb conjugations. Because from my experience, this is where people usually give up, is at verb conjugations. You start verb conjugations and you learn some nouns, right? But this is the technical side. I think we have to have a formal side and the extracurricular side. I think it's just as important. For example, all right, so I'm gonna say something. All right, before we have a guest, Dr. Rasul Miller. He has to go in a few minutes, so I want him to come and say a couple of words. He's a professor at which university, Shay? UC Irvine in California. He's a professor of history. He specializes in African American history and Sunni movements and Sunni groups in America. The history of Sunni Islam in America. So he's a professor. He archives. He do all of the work. So he's one of our specialists, faqih in the field, right, of history. So he documents our history, people that look like me and you in Sunni Islam in America. This is what he does for a living. So let's benefit from him while he's here. He's working on a book that we should all support when he's finally published. And I would like to one day have these kind of works in our Islamic schools as core curricula, so we could be able to preserve our narrative and tell it. So without further ado, we have Dr. Rasul Miller.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. How y'all brothers doing? Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So as Brother Maurice said, we go back long time. I remember being in the Arabic class. I was at Duke. He was at UNC Chapel Hill. And, we would have like these joint sessions. And I look over, I see one other brother, you know what I'm saying? Look like me. I was like, who is this brother? Quiet brother, And then after a while, had the locks. I think I had them at the time too, right? We both had the dreads, you know what I'm saying? And so I had to go over and get to know my brother, and we've been close friends and pretty much family since then. My mother calls him, one of her other sons, alhamdulillah. So we making dua that Allah continue to preserve him and Brother Najeeb and reward y'all for this good work y'all are doing. I don't have a lot to say, I just wanted to come in and, be with the brothers and support what the brothers are doing. What I will say is this. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Muhammad. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I'm really impressed and heartened by what I've heard you brothers saying. My Arabic is nowhere near, where Brother Maurice's is, and probably nowhere Brother Najeeb is either. But I've had, my journey with the Arabic language as well, and experienced a lot of the setbacks that y'all have talked about, and I wish that I had the opportunity to have this perspective early on, but I'm also thankful that I have this perspective now. The biggest thing that I think I've taken away from our conversations over the years about the Arabic languages is it's really about just jumping in and being consistent. I study history, I also study fiqh, and have a solid working knowledge of the Arabic language. But in more recent years, I found that just picking up a book in Arabic on a subject that I'm interested in and just struggling through it has been so rewarding. You discover things, you start to get more used to the syntax, the order, the way in which people who speak and write in Arabic put things together. And alhamdulillah, it opens up another world. There's nothing like hearing somebody recite the Quran and actually being able to understand what's being said. Alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful feeling. And being able to use the Quran. I had a conversation recently with people probably familiar with Dr. Sherman Jackson, his work. People familiar with Sherman Jackson? Yeah. And we were talking about just the state of Islam, in the States today. And he said something I thought was really profound. He said, are people using the Quran, having a relationship with the Quran in their everyday life? It's one thing to be able to read the Quran for understanding. It's another thing to be able to use the Quran in your dua, turn to the Quran. When somebody passes away, what do? We read Quran for that person. When somebody's sick, we can read Quran for that person. When we have different struggles that we have in our life, we can turn to Allah through dua, through our salat, but also through reading the Quran, right? And even just being able to practice our reading of the Quran, even if you don't understand what you're saying yet, you know what I mean? There's barakah and blessing in that language, and you'll start to see over time how it transforms us and whatnot. So that's all I really have to offer. One thing I will say, looking at this book, looking at this book,
and could you discuss the importance of the Arabic language as it relates to our history?
Yes. So looking at this book that was written by two professors who both me and Maurice had the opportunity to study with down in North Carolina, Brother Mbayalo, who's a Senegalese Muslim brother, and Professor Carl Ernst, who's a white professor who I'm pretty sure is Muslim. He kind of quietly, living in that academic world as an elder, Caucasian professor. But I the way he moved, I'm pretty sure, alhamdulillah, he's Muslim. And they put together this book about the history of Omar ibn Said, right? A Sayyid, exactly. And that, they discuss in the book that his name is actually a Sayyid, rather than Said. But Omar ibn Sayyid from the region of Futa Toro, who was enslaved, brought to the Americas, brought to North Carolina, and used his knowledge of Arabic in his pursuit of freedom. And was not able to obtain his freedom, but was able to obtain a much better situation than he was initially in terms of being treated better, in terms of having some different support and whatnot. And we find that this is actually something that is common among a lot of the enslaved African Muslims. They tended to be more literate because they were coming from places as Muslims where there was a emphasis on literacy, where they were learning Arabic. One of the ways in which that Islam spread in West Africa was that the Muslims would open up a school. See, alhamdulillah, West Africa, in many cases, was a place where even if you weren't the majority if Muslims weren't the majority of the population, we were able to have a good relationship with the rest of the community. It wasn't a combative, antagonistic situation. So the ulama in West Africa, going all the way back to the 11th century, right? They established a paradigm where they say, okay, we're not going to spread Islam in these areas by fighting. We're not going to fight jihad to spread Islam because we don't have to, alhamdulillah. We're not saying that that's illegitimate, but in our context, we don't have to. So what we'll do is we'll open up schools. and we'll let the Muslim child come to the school, and the non-Muslims can send their children to our school. So we find many of the West African languages like Wolof, like Hausa, like Pula, Fulani. Many of them, the first language that they were written in, or the first script they were written in, was Arabic. Oh, it's the other time. So should I pause? Sure. Yeah. Let me know. Tell me what to do. Okay. This one.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على السلام حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Alhamdulillah. So I'll make it quick because I got to go catch a plane. But I say this too. You know, I'm from around here. I actually grew up. I was born in Patterson. Grew up outside of Newark. Went to the Chad School till I was about 9 years old, and then went down to South Carolina. Did my undergrad at Duke with Sister Ifti Hodge. Alhamdulillah. So this is homecoming, and I know I'm with family. You know, Alhamdulillah. So just to finish the thought, and I'll try to be quick. And I love the way one of our imams over in California, who we got to bring out here, Imam Jahaz Safir, excellent brother, excellent teacher, who, you know, we're still studying. We going back through Ejromiya, back through the basics of grammar, Ejromiya, and going through some fiqh. But the way he put it, Arabic is like one of our liberation languages for Black people in this part of the world. In West Africa, we would set up schools. The Muslims set up schools, and they let the Muslim and non-Muslim children come to the schools. So people began to see the Muslims as people who brought benefit, right? And this is how Islam spread, so that some people became Muslim, and even the ones who didn't become Muslim saw the Muslims as a benefit and as an ally. Even the rulers would start to incline to Islam, and some of them became Muslim. Some of the most famous examples are people like Sundiata. Have you ever heard of Sundiata? The Epic of Sundiata, if you look at his history, this is like the first king in West Africa to actually embrace Islam. Some say he became Muslim. Some say he himself didn't, but he loved it so much and helped to establish Islam that his kids, his successors, ended up coming to Islam. And these are the empires like the Songhai Empire and the Mali Empire in West Africa. But in any case, that same spirit carried on here. So enslaved African Muslims, they brought their Arabic with them. And they would do things like, you know, use their Arabic to communicate, use their Arabic to organize the folks. Sometimes they would, the slave master, the, you know, quote unquote slave master would say, okay, this guy knows this, he can write. and the people listen to him, we're gonna make him like the slave driver, right? But then in many cases, these Muslims who are given these positions of power would then organize rebellions against the slave master. And very briefly, I'll mention a couple of really prominent cases of this happen in the Caribbean, in places like Haiti. How many people heard of Macandal or Boukman Dutty? These are prominent figures in the Haitian Revolution that historians used to say, oh, they were voodoo priests. But we have people like Sylvain Diouf, who wrote a really excellent book called Servants of Allah, who went and looked at that history and said, no, these were Muslims. But people used to just dismiss what they were doing. Oh, this is some African religion. This is juju. Oh, these are prayers that they would write as their juju for protection or to fight the slave master. Now, years later, we go and open up their writings and see their writings is in Arabic. You know, Omar ibn Sayyid, when people ask him, okay, will you write the Lord's Prayer, right, in Arabic? Okay, this is the Lord's Prayer. Open it up. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. He wrote in Fatiha. He writing Surah Al-Mulk, right? Nobody has, real authority except Allah, right? And this spirit is, we inherit this legacy, right? And you know this history better than me because you've lived it. When Islam established itself here in this part of the world, right? The Muslims were opening up businesses, opening up everything from barbershops to schools that served everybody, right? And this is how the people fell in love with Islam, right? And so we got to revive that. And we got to revive this tradition of Islamic learning and knowledge from the perspective of making it beneficial to the people, right? It's one of the things I love about Brother Maurice. He could have came back from Sudan and been like, yeah, I'm the Arabic teacher. Everybody come study under me and make it some esoteric, mystical, magical. But one of the things I love is the way that he teaches Arabic and the way that he talks about Arabic. And Brother Najeeb, you do the same thing. They talk about it in a way that opens it up for you, that welcomes you into it, that says, well, we learning together, right? And makes it less kind of mystified and gives you a point of access, right? So, I got to get ready to go get this plane, but catch this flight. But I just wanted to share those thoughts because I was asked to, and we're going to be making dua, that this is successful. I hope we can establish something like this on the West Coast, something as simple as let's come every week and just talk about the Arabic language, exchange strategies, read things together, and like the brother said, we want to read Quran, we want to read Hadith, but there's benefit in being able to read the newspaper in Arabic, right? Because you're getting some practice. Because if you can read the newspaper, this is practice to make it a little easier for you when you're reading the book of Sirah and when you're reading the Quran. And when you read about what's happening in Philistine from the Arabic newspaper, you're going to get some real news. You're going to get some broader perspectives. So the more we get to expand our knowledge of Arabic, it's going to open up some different doors. I was in West Africa. I lived in West Africa for about a year. And what I saw there was really interesting. They teach the young people Quran, and they really emphasize that. But then once you get to be a little bit older, they say, kid, now you got to go learn ilm, right? Learn your fiqh, learn your hadith, learn your aqidah. But that Quran becomes the foundation. And so the last jewel that I'll share, that one of my Arabic teachers shared with me, I said, what's the best way I can get some Arabic vocabulary? He said, read the Quran. And when you come across a word you don't know, go into that dictionary. Now you got a new word, right? And so if we just build our vocabulary from the Quran, and then we use that to practice when we're reading the book of history, we're reading Sirah, read the newspaper, after a while, it's going to get easier and easier and easier. So I'm making dua for you. Y'all make dua for me. We in this journey together, and may Allah help us to become more knowledgeable about the Arabic language, more knowledgeable about our deen, and more knowledgeable about the things that will allow us to earn His pleasure. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Guys, with that, we're going to end the program today short, but I hope it was beneficial. We had our beloved guest come and visit us after he done a lecture at Princeton. He just did a lecture at Princeton University. And alhamdulillah, he came to visit us, his brothers. And he's an academic, but he's a soldier on the ground. He's just not in as a professor writing books. No, he's on the ground with us. And we need all hands on deck to make progress. So I'm very happy that you guys showed up, and I hope you guys took benefit from this program. We're very thankful. We appreciate you. We love you. And we hope to see you next week. Probably next week will be the last part of the series because Ramadan, we have to prepare for Ramadan spiritually, physically. So we want to focus on that. And then after Ramadan, inshallah, we actually start teaching Arabic. Okay, but we wanted to open the mind first. Inshallah, now we do the work and actually learning, inshallah. Inshallah, thank you once again for coming. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.